Hello, hello, hello. So today we were supposed to be doing a circle, a talk on aligned action and health. That is not going to happen today. Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about aligned action and why it is not aligned for us to have this conversation today. Actually, why it wasn't aligned for us to have the conversation yesterday, and why it's not aligned for us to have the conversation today. Date TBD. It's been really interesting because this is the topic that I've been wanting to talk about, and because I've been in alignment, it actually is not aligned for me to do this right now. And it's like that sounds kind of like circular, but I can explain. So I make this schedule of kind of the things that we're going to talk about and the things that I'm going to write about, and I have a general idea in my head of kind of the 3 or 4 kind of main objectives of each of those talks. And then kind of my process is make the schedule, get semi okay with the schedule, and then write. So I write everything out first. So I do kind of like a blog post. And then once I do the blog post, we do our talk. And then there's some other content that spits out from that. But it all kind of hinges on being really clear and able to get the information organized in such a way that makes sense for me to not only kind of write it all out, but deliver it in a way that makes sense, both written and verbally. Usually that is a very seamless process. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, oh crap, I haven't written this, and it kind of, happens at the last minute. But this is the lesson. When we are not aligned with a task, it will seem like we're fighting with it. It'll seem like the task just won't get done, can't get done, things come up, and it's just like everything is reprioritized above that task. So, or random things will happen. So I'll give you a few examples of random things that have happened, or how alignment with other items is just more aligned than this specific activity of like writing this post. So for one, my internet went out. Like the power has been going out a couple of times the last couple of days. Wi-Fi is not back on, although everything else is back on, which is very curious. I could throw Mercury retrograde in there as the example, as the reason for that, but I won't do that. But it's a good like thing to blame. So yeah, internet is just not being cooperative, which is slightly frustrating because I had other things that I wanted to do, but sometimes you need the internet, and sometimes the internet is just not available. So you have to get a shift, you got to reprioritize. So that's kind of random thing number one that's happened. Another thing that has happened is the items that I put on my to-do list have been popping on and off the last couple of weeks. So I have been trying to write this and kind of get aligned with what we're going to talk about for this topic for maybe 3 weeks now. And I've been writing little notes here and there, and I've got at least a page worth of content together, but it's not coherent. It's random thoughts. It's not coherent at all. And I've literally been sitting down for 3 weeks trying to figure out the order and figure out the main points. Even though I had main points before, those main points don't feel like the right points. So I've been sitting down, and even yesterday and today, could have been sitting down and I'm typing random things, and nothing just seems to fit. Nothing feels good, nothing works, nothing it all just feels wrong. Like I'll just be honest, like all of it feels wrong. So I'm sitting with myself, I'm sitting with kind of this content, and I'm literally fighting with it. And I'm like, okay, well, is this the time to talk about this topic? And I keep getting a yes, but not in the way that I have intended to talk about it. So then I think, okay, well, is there another topic that is supposed to be talked about tonight? And I keep getting no. So then it was, well, you have to talk about your process for not being in alignment with this one thing in particular, and kind of showing how it seems like you're fighting with it, but you're fighting with it because it's not the right thing. Because I'm not fully aligned. The topic is not fully aligned with where we are, where I am, where like it's just not right now. And I want it to be right now because I said this is the topic that we're going to talk about on a specific day. And I'm like most of us, where we say we're gonna, attend an event on a certain day, or we're going to have something done by a certain day, and we like to stick to our word to have that, be the case. And this just isn't happening, and it makes me think about all the times where I've done something where I've stayed up late and I fought with the content, or I fought with the idea, or I, said yes when I really wanted to say no, and then I was upset with myself, or I said no when I really wanted to say yes, and I, replayed conversations, and like all of the ways that I've forced things into existence and either had a good time or didn't have a good time, or like it didn't work out quite the way that it could have, or like in the best way that it could have, where I was forcing and efforting things into existence instead of just acknowledging what was, not passing judgment about what was, and then just letting it be and seeing what happens. So I'm choosing to surrender to this against what I really wanted to happen, because there's so many things that I want to share from my trip that have to do with aligned action. There's so many ideas that I've come up with, and reflections that I've had about when I've been aligned, and how great things have been, and how seamlessly and how just magical things can feel and be and turn out, versus when not aligned and you're forcing things, and you fight with the words, the presentation doesn't go as planned, the the event doesn't go as planned, the something just doesn't pan out at all, because we're so used to forcing and not being in flow with what the energy, with what the people around us actually want or need. It really isn't about wanting, it's about what is actually needed in that given moment, like what is most beneficial for all of the parties in that moment. So this is a lesson for me in surrender, because I had my 4-month schedule, and all the things that I wanted to talk about in the a certain order and certain things, and I now have to go back to the drawing board, because I had that stuff planned out, and I created all this stuff, and that's not the way it needed to work out. So this is a lesson for me in, you can't force it. It's going to be beautiful and magical when it does happen, because most of the time, actually no, not even most of the time, when I'm like aligned on these topics, the content just falls out, like it just spits out. I can write a post in a couple of hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours, but like it falls together. It comes into place beautifully, and it feels good, and this just doesn't. So it's a lesson for me in kind of surrendering and being flexible and being willing to shift. And I wanted to share this because, you might be going through something where you're trying to force something because you want it to happen a certain way, or you said you were going to do it, so by gosh, you got to stick to your word. Or any number of reasons that you might be trying to make something happen a certain way at a certain time, or with a certain person, what have you. There's any number of reasons that we want certain things to happen a certain way, and there are any number of reasons why that is actually not the way that it is intended to most beneficially happen for us and the people around us. So hopefully this is a lesson for me. I'm feeling into this. I'm working through this. I have, however, been aligned very, very deeply for the last 2.5 days with something else. So I've been completely engulfed in something else because that felt aligned and perfect and pertinent, and it's been really good. And we're gonna have some fun, I think, in July as a result of it. But yeah, that hasn't been on my radar for a while, and all of a sudden here it is, and I've been engulfed for the past 2.5 days. So yeah, trying to stay in the flow, trying to stay in observer mode and non-judgment about how we feel, what we're doing or not doing, and being open and honest about all of it, being compassionate about the situation, compassionate with ourselves, being easy with ourselves, and showing ourselves the grace that we would want to show someone else in this process of figuring things out and showing up in new and different ways for ourselves and others. It's a process, it's a journey, and the more that we're stepping up and stepping out, the more that things like this are going to happen, and the more that we are in our flow, the more we step into our power, and we can be the example for others to step into their power as well, hopefully. So that's what's going on. We're going to postpone aligned action and health because it just isn't aligned to do it right now. And I don't know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. That's what I can say. So I will let you know as soon as I know when that is, when the content starts flowing out. And I hope you are able to use this as an example of anything in your life that doesn't feel aligned, where you feel like you're forcing, where you feel like you are just fighting with a task to get done and it isn't flowing easily and effortlessly. It might be a sign for you that maybe that task is maybe not the right task to do right now, or it's not aligned with where you are right now, and something else might be better to do first than do the other task. So I will be in touch, and I hope this was helpful. Okay, take care.